Welcome to Nisreen's Art World. I'm Nisreen, a dancer and a visual artist with a background in graphic art and psychology, currently based in the US. This podcast is your gateway to a creative fusion of ideas where I explore everything from book reviews to dance analysis, all through an artistic lens, in both English and Japanese. Whether you are here for inspiration, insight, or a fresh perspective, I'm glad you're joining me on this journey. Hello, this is Nisreen. Welcome to the first episode of Season 3 of my podcast. It's lovely to speak with you again. The other day, I was searching online for a definition of art. Even though I identify as an artist, it's difficult to define art because it depends so much on cultural context. One theory presented in an Encyclopaedia Britannica article resonated with me though. It states, quote-unquote, "Artists, past and present, keep alive for us humankind's natural potential for beauty and power and help future generations to examine the fundamental mysteries of life and death, which we both fear and desire to know." Today, I'd like to talk about 3 pieces of art that explore these mysteries in profound ways. 1 painting, 1 manga, and 1 piece of literature. I hope you enjoy it. 1. Death and the Maiden, 1908, by Marianne Stokes. First, let's look at the stunning pre-Raphaelite oil painting by the French artist Marianne Stokes. Death and the Maiden is a common artistic motif from the Renaissance era. What's innovative about this particular piece, though, is how both Death and the Maiden are portrayed as beautiful young women. This clearly opposes classic portrayals where death is depicted as a skeleton or a lewd abductor, and the maiden is depicted as a passive object. Death's skin is green, with no sign of blood, yet her eyes and hands show delicacy and dignity. The maiden looks hesitant, but respectful, leaning slightly towards Death. One of Death's black wings supports the maiden's back as if carrying her. It feels as though I can hear Death solemnly notifying the maiden that her time has come, and the maiden answering with a trembling voice. There's a conversation between them. This is not just about power dynamics. This nuanced depiction of death truly resonates with me because death is an invincible force but also an essential part of life, not something alien. The use of color is also effective. The striking red of the bed cover is pulled taut between the maiden's hands and Death's weight on the bed, suggesting her life is in danger. Small details such as the falling flower petals from the vase and the shining pearls on the bedside table emphasize the maiden's earthly life now under threat. This is a perfect example of the mastery of symbolism used to tell a story on canvas. 2. The Heart of Thomas, 1974, by Moto Hagio. This compelling story was written and illustrated by legendary Japanese manga artist Moto Hagio. Her delicate art style and complex storytelling transformed the norms of shoujo manga, that is, manga aimed at adolescent girls and young women, in the 1970s. The story is set in Germany, sometime in the latter half of the 20th century. 14-year-old Thomas Wallner falls to his death from a lonely pedestrian overpass after sending a note to a schoolmate. To Julie, one last time, this is my love. This is the sound of my heart. Surely you must understand. The story unfolds in a grim but poetic way, centering on Thomas' death. What's remarkable is how it captures the emotional process of healing from trauma among adolescents. Hagio uses manga's unique strength to the fullest. Symbolic and fantastical depictions of the characters' emotional journeys, such as transforming them into angels or layering tree leaves with human faces, work perfectly to delve into their sensitive inner worlds. The balance of black and white inner illustrations is reminiscent of Arthur Beardsley. I read this brief but profound story as a teenager myself and loved it so much. I even made my husband read it. He enjoyed it, though his only complaint was that the boys were too small and adorable to be European teenage boys. This is true, and it reflects an important piece of cultural context. The rigid gender norms Japanese girls and women faced at the time. Shoujo manga of the era often used androgynous, foreign boys to explore taboo subjects like sex, trauma, and abuse, topics young women were not even supposed to think about. In other words, these characters weren't meant to be realistic boys, but incarnations of the girls themselves. Hagio even discusses this in her essay, Ichido Kiri no Oizumi no Hanashi. In that sense, the story may be a bit hard to access if you're outside that cultural context. However, if you appreciate psychological drama with poetic artwork, you'll definitely enjoy it. 3. Death in Venice, 1912 by Thomas Mann. Lastly, let's focus on Death in Venice, a classic novella by German author Thomas Mann. You may remember the famous film adaptation by Luchino Visconti, especially with Gustav Mahler's music in the background. The original book has a much more metaphorical and ironic tone in contrast to the romantic and tragic mood of the film. The main character, Gustav von Aschenbach, is a distinguished author in his early 50s, recently ennobled in honor of his artistic achievements. A man of intense discipline, he was widowed at a young age. The story follows his vacation to a beautiful coastal hotel in Venice, Italy. Mann's original intention was to write about, quote-unquote, passion as confusion and degradation, inspired by Goethe's real-life infatuation with 17-year-old Baroness Ulrich von Levetzow. However, motifs such as a reasonable man losing himself in passion or the tension between art and order are themes Mann explored in earlier works too. Little Hell Friedemann, 1898, Buddenbrooks, 1901, Tonio Kroger, 1903. What I love about Mann's writing is how he recognizes ironic humor even in tragic situations. In Death in Venice, death is not only loss, but a metaphor for the fragility people feel when moved by the desire to love and be loved. If you've ever been in such a situation yourself, the character's experiences may feel painfully familiar. It also made me wonder, does creating art help when you are truly struck by passion or beauty in real life? Reading Death in Venice can be a profound way for artists to connect with their own vulnerability. So there you have it. I introduced 3 pieces of art today: Death and the Maiden, The Heart of Thomas, and Death in Venice. These masterpieces will absolutely help you explore the universal theme, death in art. How did you find today's episode? I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider leaving a review or comment. Liking and subscribing to my YouTube channel would be more than welcome. Thank you so much for listening. Goodbye for now.